It's time for a big SnapChick Q&A session. I put out the call the other day for questions on Facebook and I got a whole bunch of good ones, so let's get to it. The first question is from Mark. Mark asked, how do you use your DSLR as a light meter? I've read how to, but I still don't understand. Well, I would set my DSLR to manual and spot metering if your camera has it. Set the ISO to your preference, then either aperture or shutter speed. This will work great with available light or continuous lights, but it won't act as an incident meter for strobes. All right, the next question. John. John asks, do you have a boyfriend or are you married? You guys did see the video with the laptop from a long time ago? Yeah, that probably answers your question. The next question is from Alex. What's a good gel to use during nightclub photography to help blend the ambient light with the on-camera flash? Would prefer to not use flash, but I cannot stop motion without it. My body limits me at 1600, which only gives me 1/20th with a 2.8 lens. The lights at the venue are usually red, blue, and orange. Well, I think that nightclub photography is a great opportunity to be different and edgy. I'd bring a few gels. Frankly, nightclub shots can start to look the same after a while. You know, bring some funky colors and some regular ones too, I guess, and just fire away. If I had to choose one, I'm thinking purple. I would bring purple. Greg asks, I was more interested in knowing what hair gel works best at nightclubs. Oh, Greg, I don't think you were serious, but I'm going to answer it anyway. I don't use hair gel, so I don't really know what's cool these days, but when I danced ballet as a kid, we used Elmer's glue watered down. I don't actually suggest doing that. The next question is from Ryan. If you could own any camera from any time period in like new condition, what would it be and why? Ryan. This may sound a bit cold, and I do love various camera bodies, but my answer would be anything that's easy to use and feels good in my hands. If it's, my old Nikon FG, a Nikon D300, or one of these big guys like the D2X, if I can, work smoothly with it, I like it. My next question is from Andrew. Getting groups of people all in focus in low light, like in a church, preferably with no flash. No. Bring a good prime lens and keep them all in the focal plane. Otherwise, you will need a flash and a narrower aperture if the people are scattered about. Newt asked, how many f-stops do you lose by adding a 2x converter to a 70 to 210 Nikon lens? 2x will usually cost you 2 stops. Note, though, you have to make sure that you have a lens and converter combo that will work. I don't recall seeing any converters compatible with the 70 to 210. You might have to go third party or back into Nikon's catalog a bit. They make it so certain converters won't mount to certain lenses because the glass elements can collide. So be careful and research before you buy. Timothy asks, Leigh, what do you think of the Micro Four Thirds lineup of mirrorless cameras? Some folks are saying they replace the current DSLRs for pro use in the future. I don't have a Micro Four Thirds, but I do have this mirrorless V1, which is the same idea. I do find myself using it a lot because of its small size, but when the highest quality counts, the D800 makes the trip. Chris asks, what do you think of the current situation in North Korea? Gosh, Chris, talk about a serious question. I'm going to answer it with a semi-serious answer. I think everyone in the world should just hug and then take one giant picture together. And I'll take the picture. I'll volunteer to go up in space and take the picture. Floyd asks, what do you do to generate creative ideas and how should a beginner set up studio lights for portraits? Check out some of my studio videos, like these. For creative ideas, I do all sorts of things. Go to a museum, walk around the mall. Sometimes I look at pictures on Google or in magazines. Richard asks, who wears short shorts? Richard, I have the song in my head and it's probably going to be in there all day. And my answer is Barbie. Barbie wears short shorts. Michael. Michael says, how do you use a flash to fill in? Well, this is pretty simple. Try your flash outside, like in the middle of the day. You may notice that shadows aren't as harsh, and as an added bonus, if you use a powerful enough flash and a low ISO setting, you'll get a nice deep blue sky behind your subject. Corey says, here's a few questions I have. The first one is, what made you get something besides Mac or Windows? I used a System 76 Linux laptop for a while because I called up System 76 and asked if I could borrow one. It was a lot of fun. I've used Linux on various systems for years. It's fun to use, and I like to feel like I'm putting one over on the man. And his other question is, do you ever have moments where, or his second question, do you ever have moments where your creativity is lost and you get burnt out from shooting? All the time. I don't think about it though. I just make sure I have a camera handy for when the moment strikes. And his last question is, what is one photography tool that you couldn't live without? A normal lens, 50 millimeter on full frame, 35 millimeter on DX, 18.5 millimeter on my little V1. Raj says, define creativity. Well, Raj, I'm not much for defining words like art or creativity, but I do know that creativity happens for me when I throw the rules away. Julian asks, for guerrilla photography or videography, especially fast motion, Blackmagic pocket camera or Pani GH3 or Nikon 1V2, 60 frames per second, 10 megapixels raw burnt stitch in post-process? The next Blackmagic looks like it will be very, very, very nice. In the meantime, my V1 keeps me very happy with video. I don't use it to convert still raw images into videos though. Terrence, best backup solution, NAS or similar, and aperture or Lightroom. Also wanting to know what's the best filters, neutral density, to use for landscapes. For backups, check out my article here. It's fun to use graduated neutral density filters for landscapes. Honestly, I don't do it very often, but the deep sky at sunset with a brighter landscape can definitely look amazing. Basma says, night photography tips. Good ones, please. Good ones. That's the only types of tips I give. But I don't really know what you're talking about. Do you want tips on photos of stars, people, night landscapes? So let me know and then I can answer. Len, where should a novice get started? I don't lack motivation, just time. 7 kids keeps me busy. Well, I guess so. But 7 kids and a camera sounds like a target-rich environment. Sleepy kids, active kids, fighting kids. You have all of the elements for good photography right there. Chance asks, on average, how many photos do you take before you have that one that makes you smile and pat yourself on the back? Sadly, I have to take 3,000 to 4,000 photos before I get one of these. Well, you know what? I usually hate all my pictures. Seriously. Okay, maybe not hate. Hate's a strong word, but, you know, it's rare that something really, you know, makes me want to pat myself on the back. Khalid, when you first used a Canon, did it hurt? Just kidding. What is your go-to camera during the normal days and go-to camera during big planned shoots? I got D7000, D5200, D50, and P310, depending. Mostly I have the P310 in the pocket, D5200 for video, and D7000 for big shoots. D50 gets no love. Aw, poor D50. I shoot with my little V1 all the time. I like the T4i for casual stuff, but the D800 and the D300S are what I use when I'm playing for keeps. Chris asks, how did you first get into photography? What would you say to all the people posting mean/strange stuff on your YouTube? Well, I've always had a camera in my hand. From a very young age, I had this bright yellow camera. It's really always just felt like a part of me, and it's something I've always liked to do. Now, regarding the mean stuff on YouTube, I'm cool with it. It's just a part of putting yourself out there. Gary, in this day and age where makers are hyping useless specifications in order to grab consumers, it's easy to get caught up in the game. Question, how many megapixels are enough for the average enthusiast? This is a good question because, you know, you don't need a bajillion million pixels. I've been shooting 6 megapixels since my old D100 and D70. Even with large prints, a bit of sharpening and a strong shot to begin with are more important to me than megapixels. For big landscape prints, the D800 with 36 megapixels is fantastic. but 6, 10, or 12 megapixels, that's how I shoot quite often. Cohen asks, what is the best prime lens for Canon? Canon makes some great 50 millimeter lenses, but it's a matter of what you're shooting. For portraits, 85 millimeters might be the best, and for landscapes, you'll definitely want wider angles. Samuel asks, what do you do if you want to shoot people in the public, like in the bus? How do you ask them, and what are the most reactions? Or do you try to shoot without asking? For me, even though in public, everyone and everything is fair game. It pays to be polite and start a conversation, though. You know, if someone reacts negatively to the prospect of being photographed, just remain calm and be polite. They'll get over it. And then, you know, find something else to shoot. Street photography is street photography, though, and if you're in public and your subject is too, you know, be discreet, keep your distance, and fire away. If you do embarrass someone, though, you know, be careful, because, you know, you never know. They might come after you. Howard asks, feet portraits, do they exist? How do you light them? Well, Howard, they do exist, unfortunately. But I probably say that just because I have ugly feet. The next question is from Samuel. Samuel says, how often do you grab your camera and get out to shoot? Maybe daily, or do you have your camera always with you? Well, at a minimum, I always have one of my smaller cameras with me. Howard again asks, do you use a gadget to manually set white balance? Nope. I like to work quickly and smoothly. If I don't have the time to get it right, I'll shoot raw with auto white balance and just deal with it later. Yossi asks, how to choose the optimal metering mode to get the most suitable exposure? Practice. I use center weighted a lot, though. Thomas asks, I have Nikon D300S with 17 to 55 f2.8. Should I upgrade to D600, or is that a downgrade? Personally, I would just keep going with the D300S. It's a fantastic body. I love mine. Matthew, what photographer from history has inspired you the most? Well, I found much of my inspiration from many photographers, painters, and sculptors in the past and the present. Some of them might be Clive Booth, Bunny Yeager, Da Vinci, Caravaggio. His use of light is absolutely stunning. I could go on. I could go on that topic for days and days. Let's see. Next one is from Carl. I'd like to know how your Darktable and GIMP experience was when using Ubuntu. What worked for you compared with Lightroom and Photoshop? Darktable was probably the most flexible, especially when dealing with RAW files. I made a video on it here. Now, Greg asks, have you already created a video on depth of field? Greg, surely you've seen my depth of field video. It's not exactly the highlight of my career, but it's my most popular video. I didn't take it very seriously. I'll make a new one, but I don't think I'll take that one very seriously either. So with that, today's Q&A session is complete. I'll talk to you guys later.